difference a month makes. Just 4 weeks ago, the French and British foreign ministers said Colonel Muammar Gaddafi could possibly stay on in Libya if he agreed to step down immediately. Well, today, the fortunes of war seem to have gone the way of the rebels. They say they've captured the crucial town of Zawiya, just 30 miles west of Tripoli, and that they're confident Gaddafi will be defeated within a fortnight.
La victoire est proche.
Our victory is close. Our soldiers, our people who are still under the dictatorship of Gaddafi, have decided that we will celebrate the end of Ramadan and our victory at the end of August.
La fête de la victoire, fin du mois d'août.
Well, it's not just the rebels who are optimistic. The United States is also hoping the 5-month NATO offensive is coming to an end.
The combination of NATO forces there, the combination of what the opposition is doing, the sanctions, the international pressure, the work of the Arab League, all of that has been very helpful in moving this in the right direction. And I think the sense is that Gaddafi's days are numbered.
Well, now, before we get too ahead of ourselves, we have heard this kind of enthusiasm from Washington before. A quick look at some of the comments that have come out in March. Their days are numbered. In April, your days are numbered. In May, Muammar Gaddafi's days are numbered. All of that coming from Jay Carney, the spokesperson for the White House. So it's not the first time we've heard that Gaddafi's days are coming to an end. So are we really near the end game in Libya? And just what would the country look like post-Gaddafi? Well, joining me to discuss that tonight in Benghazi, Colonel Ahmed Omar Bani. He's the military spokesman for the National Transitional Council. In Washington tonight, Walid Fares is a professor of global strategy at the National Defence University. In London, Shashank Joshi is Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute and a doctoral student at Harvard University. And here with me in the studio, Philip Stoner is former Deputy UK Defence Attaché in Paris. Many thanks indeed to you all for being with us tonight. I'd like to start with you in Colonel Bani in Benghazi tonight. What is different this time around? We've heard the rebels say before they are close to victory. Why should we believe you this time?
Good evening, for everybody. I would like just to say that we are really now in Lepreiga city, especially Lepreiga, the industrial area where the refiner and where the petrochemical factories and also the oil port. We are now just trying to retake it from the tyrant forces. Already the third area and the second area in Brega liberated already now. And now we are fighting just to retake the industrial area. We are trying now also in the Western Mountain, trying now to I could say to be around Tripoli from the west side and the east side in Misrata. Our forces now, our troops now there, the revolution is there. They are really making good advances there. I think within the end of this month, especially Ramadan, which gave us good morale, we will solve this problem and we will achieve the victory soon, inshallah.
All right, so what will happen then? Will you march on Tripoli or will you negotiate Gaddafi's surrender?
I don't think so. I don't think that the tyrant, he understands the peaceful language. No, he just understands the language of the bullets, the language of the guns. Because now we are spent more than 6 months trying just to make him understand that with this way he will never get anything. He will never stay. He will never control. He will never lead our country again. So in order to talk with him with this way, with the peaceful way, he will not understand you. And we are now trying to liberate Tripoli by the force, because he will not leave Tripoli accept with this way.
All right, Colonel Bani, many thanks. Philip Stoner, what do you think of what you heard there? Do the rebels certainly seem much more emboldened than they have been in recent weeks?
I think the Colonel brought up a very good point. The fact is they have basically the morale with them. They're in a position where basically not only internally within Libya, they are gathering their own momentum. They've had some problems. They've had some problems right at the top. The death of Yunus and so forth was clearly an internal problem, something that needed to be fixed, perhaps. But nevertheless, despite that, there is this sort of sense of moving forward. So internally, they're coming together. And also from the outside, the other countries who are supporting the Libyan rebels, the United States, the UK, France, as well as the Middle East and a number of other countries, are clearly now in a position where they're basically, although they're not saying it overtly, egging on the rebels and basically saying, now is the time to make it happen. I think there are probably, no doubt, a few bad surprises up the sleeve of Gaddafi. It's quite possible he may well do something stupid again. Trying to launch a Scud missile a couple of days ago wasn't particularly bright. What on earth was it aimed at, and what was the point? But the chances are that Gaddafi may well come out with something which may be in the form of a bad surprise. But nevertheless, the noose is tightening. Right,
well, and that's the risk, isn't it, Walid Faris, that Gaddafi will unleash something awful. I mean, he said he will die in Libya. He will fight to the death. What are the risks of something like a chemical attack or something like that?
Well, to use those kind of weapons, he must have been completely surrounded. This is not yet the case. The tidal wave, as the Colonel has said, and other experts, is turning. But at what pace is the question? You remember the discussions of his days are numbered. We know they are numbered, but what is that number is the question. If you look at the maps, you have on the eastern theater the Battle of Brega. It's been won by the rebels, but between Brega all the way to Bin Jawad and to Sirte, there are dozens of places and villages and battles to be fought to get there. So the rebels are moving forward, but at a pace which I don't know if by the end of this month or even in September will be done. In the Western Front, if we look at the map, yes, indeed, they are now advancing in three directions towards Tripoli. But the only advantage Gaddafi still has is that his forces are connected from east to west. The rebel forces are not. So I would think that the rebels will have actually to get to the suburbs of Tripoli for Gaddafi to use those kind of last-day weapons, such as chemical and other. And that would be a big mistake, of course.
All right. Shashank Joshi, what's the number for you? Do you think Gaddafi can be ousted within 2 weeks, or do you think that's unrealistic?
I think it's probably unrealistic, and throughout this conflict the rebels have been, as you know, pathologically over-optimistic. I do think this time is different. I think they have genuinely surrounded Tripoli in a sort of pincer movement. I think once the supplies begin to dry up, it will cause severe problems. And let's note today at noon, Tripoli suffered a blackout. So we may be seeing the beginnings of this siege take effect. However, I agree that Gaddafi is liable to do something stupid, not just fire Scuds, but also perhaps enmesh the rebels in extremely messy, prolonged and destructive urban warfare. He will make them plough through the capital city. He is not going to tolerate a peaceful handover of power.
All right, and just to remind viewers what they're looking at here, you're looking at a map of the towns you were looking at a map of the towns surrounding Libya. There you go. Red is for the rebels. These are towns under rebel control. Green is for those areas under the control of Colonel Gaddafi. As you can see, they are very few. But we have seen, haven't we, Walid Faris, towns come under rebel control and then go back under Gaddafi's control, to and fro, a bit of a power struggle going on. Is that over now? Are we out of that phase, do you think?
We will see. In the first few months of the struggle, if we all remember, there were those towns back and forth, World War I style will be taken by one party, then the other party. What has changed, I believe, is that the rebels now are widening their enclaves. It's their own areas, and they're making progress outside those areas. What they need to do to really encircle Gaddafi is to connect those areas. For example, the three forces advancing to Tripoli, they need still to connect among each other. The same goes for the eastern province. So they are making progress in general terms, but Gaddafi would choose a moment, as the gentleman has just said earlier, to transform his fight against them as another rebel fight. He could become the one using the rebel methods and urban warfare. Still yet to be seen, unless a surprise will happen. And the only card that the rebels could use, if they have it, is an uprising inside Tripoli. We've not seen it before yet, we will wait and see.
And Philip Stoner, a point you made earlier was that in some ways it's as important to be seen to be winning the war as it is to be actually winning.
Absolutely, and I think this is a key point for the rebels. But one thing I would add here is I think it's worth noting that the rebels, throughout the whole of this 6 months, have been at pains, that's certainly my reading of it, to keep the civil society on side within Libya. So from the point of view of, whilst at the same time waging a war against Gaddafi and Gaddafi's forces, bearing in mind the Gaddafi forces are in fact the very civilian population that hopefully will turn around sooner rather than later and say, yes, we're with you, the rebels, and we actually want to get Gaddafi out. So I think one has to be very careful here, and the rebels are, I think, being as careful as they can to ensure that things like water, electricity, fuel and so forth are kept supplied in a way by which the civil populations in Tripoli, for one, are actually managing to keep going and not turn against the rebel cause.
And that's very difficult, of course, when you've got NATO bombs raining down on parts of the society as well. Colonel Barney, I wanted to ask you one thing as well. There have been reports that there have been negotiations underway in Tunisia between representatives of the regime and also your rebels as well. Can you tell us whether that's been going on or not in Tunisia?
No, I don't think so that this information are true. I don't think so, because we have nothing to say to the tyrant, and he has nothing to say for us, because 2 days ago he was on the TV and he was ordering his loyalists, I could say, we have to fight until the end of our blood or something like that. So the negotiation in Tunisia, I don't think so that it's true, because our NTC said that we don't have any contact with Gaddafi or with anybody saying that there is negotiations or something like that. No, I don't think so that it's true.
And if Gaddafi was to say right now that if he was granted immunity and his sons were as well, and as long as he could stay in Libya, would that be acceptable to you?
My lady, we cannot stay alive in the same place with the devil. So he has no place to stay here in Libya, and I'm sure that he's fighting because he has no place to go, even out of Libya. So I could say that he will fight until the end of his life, or as he said, that I will fight until the end of I could say the last soldier.
All right, Walid Phares, it looks like a political solution might be off the table for now, at least as far as the rebels are concerned.
Well, of course, the rebels understand that if they accept a ceasefire with Gaddafi's regime, so their projection is that he will use that time, and we've seen it with previous civil wars, to reorganize his forces and counterattack. And same goes for Gaddafi. Any offer for Gaddafi less than basically disarm him completely would be basically another ceasefire for himself, and he thinks that the rebels are going to use it against him. So at this point in time, unfortunately, I don't see the ground text for a real political solution, although many outside Libya would like to see that happening. It's a little bit late in the game. But at the same time, can the rebel deliver a final blow to Gaddafi that fast as they are claiming? It's, we'll have to wait and see.
Shashank Joshi, what's your view on that?
Well, first of all, the Colonel is probably incorrect. There are almost certainly meetings taking place. They may not be negotiations, but they may be negotiations about negotiations. The second point is, even if the rebels are guaranteed a win, are guaranteed to depose Colonel Gaddafi, as I think they are, it is still in their interest to see if they can attain that outcome through peaceful means rather than violent means. That may not be possible, but it is worth exploring. And if it does involve internal exile, as unlikely and difficult and impracticable as that is, it's something that Mustafa Abdul Jalil, the head of the Transitional National Council, has himself suggested. I think there are many in the opposition who are perhaps overestimating the ease with which the capital city will fall. Some people have estimated as many as 70% of those in Tripoli support the regime. I think that's a very serious overestimate, but there are pockets of regime support. So how are they going to be bypassed? How are they going to be overcome? And how will the TNC end up in Tripoli if it's the Western forces that take charge of the capital city first? All of those questions have not really found satisfying answers just yet.
All right, well, let's put that to the Colonel. Could you respond to any of the points just made from London? For example, how will you, in practical terms, take the capital city when there is still so much support for Gaddafi? I think we may have lost Colonel Bani, unfortunately. We'll try and get him back on the line for you.
Hello?
Oh, yes,
hello?
you're still with us.
Hello?
Hello, Colonel Bani.
Yes, say again, please.
Okay.
Yes, say again, please.
A series of points have just been raised, one of which is there is concern that you won't be able to take the capital city, Tripoli, because there is so much support for Gaddafi still there.
Who's saying that? I would like really to invite him to visit our Earth is a Planet lady. We will, when we lost more than 40 years waiting for this chance, I could say, and we know that the freedom never knocks the door twice. So this time we will win, we will fight within, even with our nails, I mean, and we are sure that we will win. We will liberate the capital. We will dismiss this tyrant out of Libya because we are fighting for the truth. We are fighting for the democracy. We are fighting for the right. We have the right to live in peace, my lady. So we are sure that we will win soon or later. We will win.
Well,
I think what we see coming out there, and it's very interesting to sort of get a reaction from the Colonel that you're getting this feeling that, as I might have mentioned before, right is on their side, and I think that sort of feeling is coming right down from the top. It's coming right down from the head of the Transnational Council, obviously through the military, and it's just percolating down to the troops on the ground. Now, clearly, that's not a magic wand. It's not just going to make sort of Gaddafi disappear overnight. I think the point that Shashank Joshi brought up was a very good one. I mean, there is clearly a lot of discussion going on outside and around Libya at the moment, maybe in Egypt, most likely in Tunisia, possible with the UN envoy who we understand, a senior UN envoy who we understand is in Tunisia at the moment, to perhaps looking at not only the end game, but what happens after the end game. So I think, from all those different aspects, and also one other point which I think you ought to perhaps think about is the issue of social media, how social media worked in particular in Egypt. And clearly, social media is going on at the moment within Tripoli, monitoring that. What are the indications coming out of that social media as to what the possibility of a tipping point and how that might be envisaged?
all right, we're going to leave it there just for the moment. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about what Libya might look like post-Gaddafi. I'm sure we'll get some interesting views on that, and we'll have the international headlines for you as well. Don't go away.